So I've been doing these videos through the season where we kind of take a look at where we are in the regular season. We did it at the quarter mark, the halfway mark, and now we're three-quarters of the way through the 2023-24 OHL regular season. And each report I did it a little differently. I looked at the leading scorers, looked at just the records. Today, we'll look at the last 10 and how this is going to shape up the races in both the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference as the playoffs are just over 5 weeks away. So let's dive right into it. I'm also going to put on the screen the standings as a reference guide as we go through it. And we'll start things off in the West. And the London Knights, they're in a position where they could clinch a playoff spot by the end of the week. If they can get a win against the Sioux Greyhounds and then a loss for the Sarnia Sting, then the London Knights, they will become the first team in the Ontario Hockey League to clinch a playoff spot for this season. And it's no surprise, really, with the way they've been playing. They're on a 23-game point streak as we speak at the time of recording. Their last regulation loss was December 10th. That was up in Sault Ste. Marie. So over their last 10 games, the London Knights 8-0-2. Those two shootout losses against the Peterborough Petes and the Erie Otters. And they look destined right now to win the Midwest Division. They have a comfortable 15-point gap right now on the Kitchener Rangers. So the London Knights continue to get things done, and I don't see it slowing anytime soon. This is a London Knights team that's just showing that they didn't have to make too many adjustments. Of course, they picked up Michael Simpson at the start of the season from Peterborough, and the only move they made at the OHL trade deadline was Caleb Lawrence from the Ottawa 67s. Meanwhile, the Saginaw Spirit, they got off to a slow start this year, but they have climbed steadily in the top spot in the West Division, right now second in the West. 9-1 is their record over their last 10 games. They're on a 5-game winning streak. If Saginaw can sweep their 3-game road trip this weekend, they will likely be the second team to clinch a playoff spot by the end of the weekend for the Ontario Hockey League. They're going to be in Barrie, Sudbury, and North Bay. Not an easy road trip, but with the way the Saginaw Spirit have been playing, I wouldn't be too surprised. The Sioux, they're right now sitting in third in the Western Conference. They've slipped a bit in the second half. Their big ad at the trade deadline was Gavin Hayes, and he's worked out so far for the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. Right now, they are 6 points behind Saginaw, so they're still trying to keep pace with Saginaw, but since all the additions with the Spirit, it seems as though it's going to be a little hard to do. But still, this is a very competitive Sioux team, and they're going to be fun to follow come playoff time. The Greyhounds, though, they are 7-3 over their last 10. They're positioned quite well heading into the playoffs. This is a team that you shouldn't have to worry. Maybe they'll have some adversity between now and the playoffs, but this is a really good Sault Ste. Marie team. The Kitchener Rangers, though, at the fourth spot, they've been a real surprise in the second half. 2-8 is their record over their last 10. They went from having a double-digit point lead in the Midwest Division to now trailing London by 15 points. So kind of a Jekyll and Hyde situation with the Kitchener Rangers. They're still a playoff team. They're the third highest scoring team in the league. They just need that chemistry to click. They picked up Edward Chalet at the OHL trade deadline, and I think he's still trying to find a spot with his team. He's got 2 goals, 2 assists, good for 4 points in 10 games. So Chalet, still waiting for him, I think, just to find his place on this Kitchener Rangers team. And, it just seems like they just need to gel. Something needs to click with Kitchener, because this is still a very lethal team. They got the offense. They've got Hunter Brustevich on the back end. His point production has slowed down from what we saw in the first half of the regular season, but this is a team I think that should pick it up. Now, another team that's struggling right now are the Guelph Storm. They're 5th right now in the West. The Storm, the lowest scoring team in the Western Conference, 149 goals for. They also have the second lowest goals against, so they have that going for them. That they have only given up 157 goals against this season. So credit to Braden Gillespie, who's been one of the top goaltenders in the Ontario Hockey League this season. The Storm 2-6-2 over their last 10, but if the playoffs started today, we'd be looking at a battle of Highway 7 in the first round between the Guelph Storm and the Kitchener Rangers. As a fan, I'd be pretty excited about that matchup, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. So 2 struggling teams, Kitchener and Guelph, both looking to turn it around. They still have time, so facing that adversity right now might be a good thing. However, the Owen Sound attack, they're just 1 point behind the Guelph Storm in the standings. Owen Sound, they have the goaltending with Carter George and the offense with Colby Barlow and Denny Gore and company, but it's that consistency. That's what's missing, it seems, with the Owen Sound attack. They're 5-2, 2-1 over their last 10, but they don't they have the second best power play unit in the league at 31.9%. So specialty teams is pretty good with this Owen Sound attack club, but they're also even on the goal differential, 196 goals for and 196 goals against. So Owen Sound pretty average. They just need to start playing a full 60. But they should be a team that also makes the playoffs. So I'm figuring Owen Sound they should be able to maybe make some noise. If the playoffs started today, they'd have to play the Sioux Greyhounds. So not an easy match, but probably be an exciting one. The Erie Otters, they're in a bit of a tough spot. They're 3-7 over their last 10, and they've now lost 4 in a row going into the Family Day long weekend. They're just 4 points ahead of the Flint Firebirds. So this team, they need to pick it up. They need to start getting some points, getting some wins, especially if they want to snap that playoff drought, which dates back to 2017. That was the year that the Erie Otters won the OHL championship over Mississauga. Since then, there has been no playoff hockey at the Erie Insurance Arena, and they want to snap that drought, but with their play right now, it's been lacking a little bit of late. At number 8, we have the Sarnia Sting. They're 6-3-1 over their last 10, and they've been playing spoiler and getting into the playoffs. That'd be pretty big for this young core. They play a crucial home and home this week against the Flint Firebirds, which would maybe give them some separation if they can earn wins in both of those games. They're just 1 point up on the Firebirds. The first game is going to be on Wednesday. That's at the Dort in Flint. And as for the Firebirds, they're a little confusing at the trade deadline. They traded away veterans like Gavin Hayes and Zachary Giroux, and then acquired Oliver Peer and Roberto Mancini from the Windsor Spitfires. So this is a team that wants to make the playoffs. And you know what? This is a team that, judging by their lineup, they should make the playoffs. But kind of like Owen Sound, consistency has been an issue, but they are able to get big wins against some pretty tough opponents. They're 4-5-1 over their last 10, and they got wins last weekend against Brantford and Oshawa, two teams that are 1-2 right now in the East Division. So this is a Flint Firebirds team that can play. They're a strong team, and that series this week is going to be a lot of fun to watch between Flint and Sarnia. And finally, at the 10th spot in the Western Conference standings, it's the Windsor Spitfires. This team is 3-6-0-1 over their last 10. This is a team looking to the future, but they'd love to spoil the party for someone ahead of them in the standings. Liam Greentree, he will be fun to follow as the season progresses. Of course, he's anticipated to be a first-round selection in the upcoming NHL draft in June. So Windsor, 10 points out of a playoff spot. They could make up that ground if a team in front of them continues to slip. But right now, I would think that's a little unlikely at this stage. So let's shift our focus now to the Eastern Conference. And the East, it's still wide open 3/4 of the way through the regular season. It's been fun to follow, but for the first time, we do have a little bit of separation at the top of the standings. The Sudbury Wolves, they've built a 3-point gap over second place in the Eastern Conference. They're ahead of the Brantford Bulldogs and North Bay Battalion for top spot. And Sudbury, they do have one game in hand. The Wolves, 8-2 over their last 10 games. The offense on full display since really the trade deadline. This is a high-flying Sudbury Wolves team. A lot of fun to watch offensively, but if you're a fan of this team, you get a little nervous on the defensive side of things. They do have 241 goals for, which is the highest in the Eastern Conference, but they have 194 goals against, which is the 5th lowest in the conference. That's just one goal better than the Barrie Colts, who are the 8th place team right now in the Eastern Conference standings. The Brantford Bulldogs, they hold the 2nd spot right now in the East. That's because they lead the East Division. The Bulldogs, 6-4 over their last 10, and they've come a long way from their slow start to the regular season. If Brantford, if they can hold on to a top spot or a top 4 position, home ice advantage is going to be pretty significant for them. The Brantford Civic Center, obviously the smallest rink in the OHL, so the atmosphere there is going to be something else. But they also have the 4th best home record in the Ontario Hockey League. Sitting 3rd in the East, the North Bay Battalion, who also happen to have Anthony Romani. He's been outstanding, leads the league in points and goals. And I know it's been a few years since Stan Butler last was a part of the Battalion franchise, but it's kind of strange seeing players leading offensively in the offensive categories you always think of battalion and defense. I think that's going to be a reputation that's going to take a while for them to shake. But they are doing a great job. They're 6-2, 1-1 over their last 10 games. And right now for goals for, 218. So they're second in goals for in the Eastern Conference. This is a team that's got that high-powered offense. They do have a good defense with Dom DiVincentis at the goaltending. They just need Ty Nelson to get healthy. Then we have the Oshawa Generals. They're right now in that fourth spot in the Eastern Conference, 3 points behind the Bulldogs for first in the East Division, and they're 5-2, 2-1 over their last 10 games. They've hit a bit of a speed wobble recently, with Connor Lockhart being under investigation by police. We'll see how this all plays out with the team, see if they can stay focused on the task at hand. The Generals, though, they've given up the fewest goals against in the Eastern Conference, thanks to their systems that they have placed. And also, Jacob Oster has been fantastic in net for this Oshawa Generals team. Sitting in fifth, the Ottawa 67s, and they've been one of the hotter teams right now in the OHL. Ottawa 6-1, 2-1 over their last 10, and they're just 4 points out of first in the division. It's a three-way race for top spot in the East between Brantford, Oshawa, and Ottawa. And it's the 67s right now who have 2 games in hand. So they have that inside track right now in the East Division, but they got to win those games. So don't count out Ottawa. They're still a threat in the East, and they could still try and challenge the Sudbury Wolves for top spot. Mississauga, though, is a team that I think they're still ahead of schedule. They're a great young talent with Porter Martone, Angus McDonnell and company, but they've had their struggles here and there. They've been playing a lot better of late, 4-3-3 over their last 10 games, but still, they're the most penalized team in the Eastern Conference, but they do have a really good penalty kill right now operating at 80.7%, so they're able to get it done defensively. Now, they won't likely challenge for first in the Central, but this is a team that could still push for fourth place in the East. The Kingston Frontenacs right now 7th in the East, and now they have a Barrie Colts team that's hot on their tail. They have a 4-point gap between them and the 8th place Colts. The Fronts, they're 4-6 over their last 10, and it looks like it's going to be a fight to the finish for 7th place between Kingston and Barrie. So we'll have to wait and see how that all transpires. And speaking of Barrie, the Colts, they've been climbing their way back into the playoff picture, and it's been a team effort. Colts 5-3-2 over their last 10 games. Their play on the road has been improving significantly, as is the power play, which I believe is up to 15th overall in the OHL. The Colts, they do have a 7-point lead over the Petes, but they won't want to take their foot off the gas anytime soon, and they want to keep this momentum going towards the playoffs. And this is also a great experience for a lot of the young players like Shamar Moses and Riley Patterson, Cole Baudouin. So things looking up for the Barrie Colts. Will they go higher than 7th? Not likely, but if they can string wins together, they've got some key games coming up in their schedule. Anything is possible. We'll have to wait and see. So then that leaves us with Peterborough and Niagara. I'm just going to put these two together because the playoffs seem really unlikely at this point. It could still happen. They're still mathematically in the race for a playoff spot, but Peterborough, they're 1-8-1 over their last 10, and Niagara, they're 3-6-1. So both teams looking to next season at this point, but they could still play spoilers. You can't take them for granted. Those are those trap games when you see a team that's low in the standings and you just think it's going to be a walk in the park, and that team is just waiting for you to make that mistake. So it's a fascinating push right now towards the playoffs. As I mentioned, 5 weeks to go until the postseason. A ton of fun just to see how things are going to shake up. How long is the point streak going to last for the London Knights? Can the Kitchener Rangers and Guelph Storm turn it around? And who's going to take the Eastern Conference? The East still wide open. The Sudbury Wolves, though, they're starting to get that lead. We'll see if they can continue that going forward. So thanks again for tuning in. Let me know in the comments section down below your thoughts on the season so far. Maybe your pick. Who's going to come out of the East and who's going to be the team coming out of the West? Love to see the interactions. And thank you again for all your support. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And we'll talk to you again soon.